Hey everyone, welcome back to John's Watch. Today I'm taking a look at a new game called Sancticide. This game was released on Steam in early access on February 12th, 2025. Its regular price is $21.99 Canadian or your regional equivalent, and is developed and published by Red Square Games and Cylon Studio. This is sort of a Souls-like, sort of like a character action RPG. The Steam page description says, "Become Ezechiel, sin collector in service of them at the top as he ventures through what is left of our world during the end times. It's the apocalypse and his job is to eradicate sin for the glory of God. But can a mere human really endure such fate?" So that's a very cool premise. As far as I've been able to tell, this is based on a series of or I guess the world and setting and theme is based on a series of Polish books about the world of the Sin Collector, written by Michael Golkowski. So the game is set in an established world with established lore, which the developers didn't come up with. But it doesn't actually mention that anywhere on the store page. I was only able to find that out because I saw one of the Steam reviews mention this series of books, and if I hadn't seen that, I would probably assume this was all original stuff. So I think they probably should have somewhere on the store page that it's based off of this series of books. I played this for just under 2 hours, and I honestly have no idea what to think about this game. I don't know, and this is going to sound bad, I don't know if it's meant to be a serious game, or if it's meant to be a joke game. We're going to have to get into it, but this is a real weird one. It instantly starts off being super weird. When you start the game, you're able to choose your difficulty setting from easy, medium, or hard. Unfortunately, it's not one of those games where you can change the difficulty setting at any time in the game. Your difficulty is set as when you start the game for the first time, which unfortunately I did discover later on when I may or may not have wanted to drop the difficulty down because the combat may or may not have been god-awful, and I was stuck on medium. I got past it, but yes, you cannot change the difficulty once you start it. But right away you can see some real weirdness from the difficulty select screen. Medium and hard, their descriptions are fine. The easy description: more health, stamina, and purple's your magic gauge. Enemies is a wonderful man, and he can be sure that he is fabulous without a doubt. What? Like medium says, perfect for players looking for a challenge. And then hard says, a mode for those who want the ultimate challenge. Enemies is a wonderful man, and he can be sure that he is fabulous without a doubt. I don't... what? I believe the developers are Polish, presumably, or at least Slavic, I guess? So, you know, some translation issues, some Google Translate issues could be explained. I don't know where that came from. That is just so weird. After you choose your difficulty option, you get actually a very good opening cutscene, but then you very quickly get back to some weirdness. You get another cutscene, not as good as the first one, and then it becomes very apparent in this cutscene you're listening to Ezechiel talk, and this is mentioned on the store page, but even without being mentioned on the store page, you can tell that all the voice acting in this game is AI generated. And so the store page says, we only use parts of AI generated voiceovers. The voice samples come from recordings of our developers working on the game. I don't really see how they can say they use parts of AI-generated voiceovers, because all the voice acting in this game is AI-generated for sure. I'm not even going to condemn that. I think for an early access title, you know, you've put presumably all your current budget into what's on offer. I think it makes sense to use AI voice acting for the early access version, as long as there's the intention of replacing it with proper voice acting by the time the full release comes out. You know, I think if it's an early access title, you probably have to cut some corners to get it out there and hopefully earn some money back. I don't have a problem with that. But I do think it's weird that they say they only use parts of AI-generated voiceovers, and yeah, it doesn't say on the store page that they're going to replace it with full voice acting, so that would be If they weren't going to do that, that's when I would have a problem with them using AI voice acting. But for an early access game, I think it's fine. I think it makes sense. I am a little concerned that they're... You know, every early access game on Steam has that big blue early access box at the top of it, and the developers have to answer some questions about early access. They don't mention the voice acting in that part, and they say they only plan to be in early access for 5 to 10 months. So I'm going to be very curious to look back on this game in about a year and see where it is. Once you get into the game, I mean, again, it starts off really weird. Basically, the very first area you're in, I think it's like a parking lot or something, when you spin the camera around, your whole character just turns on the spot. And I was like, oh god, really? Is this the state we're gonna have this game in? And as soon as you get past like the first parking lot or whatever it was, that doesn't happen anymore. But it's just such a bad first impression that as soon as you try and move the camera, your whole character just spins on the spot. Looks awful. You go through a tutorial and you get tutorial pop-ups that are also for some reason fully AI voiced. I feel like you didn't need AI voice acting for the tutorials, you can just read those. Every character is voiced, which is cool. Like every single line of dialogue is voiced. I like that. Probably going to be quite expensive to replace all of that with real voice acting, which will hopefully come. But yeah, the tutorial pop-ups did not need to be voiced, and they sound so fake. As you go through the tutorial level, it teaches you all the systems of the game. It teaches you the Souls-like combat, dodge roll, you can attack with right bumper, you can block with left bumper, and parry by hitting block at the right time. Like I said, you've got these magic powers, and your magic bar is for some reason called purple. I don't know if that's taken from the books, perhaps, but you couldn't come up with anything, any better title for your magic system than purple. With your magic system, you can do all sorts of things. You can use the push power to knock enemies over, which I found extremely useful for most combat scenarios. You can also use it to destroy some environmental blockages. You've got the pull power, which I don't think I actually used once. You've got the slow time power, which is not as useful as you think it might sound. You've also got the blessing power, where you can give yourself a little bit more attack and defense for a little bit. But I pretty much just left it on push, because that was the most useful. Throughout the game, you also find these treasure chests, which glow with different colors depending on the rarity of the items inside them. You can find different weapons. I very quickly found a daikatana, a two-handed sword, which I used because it was cool. I like two-handed swords. But you also find a bunch of valuables, which it's just kind of junk that has values, so you can sell it at some point in the game. I never found where I was able to sell it, possibly not in just yet. But the stuff you find is so bizarre. Just, you know, for context, you're walking around in this apocalyptic world, like the end times are happening right now. This is Earth. It's quite serious, sort of. It's a serious setting in this apocalypse. And it's just like completely undone when you open a chest and find, and I'm not joking, a copy of Two Girls, One Mug on VHS. And that's probably the weirdest thing, but you also find a My Little Pony model. You find a dragon model, which has a typo in the title. You find a pack of condoms. You find so much shit. My inventory was completely full of all this shit by not even 2 hours in. And there's just all this random variety of stuff, and it's all dumb as hell. And it really takes away from quite a serious setting and plot, I guess. And then the UI doesn't even work once you've got enough of them. You know, I was playing this with a controller because it's a Souls-like, and you can sort of like move through your inventory. But as you move through your inventory on the controller, if there's anything below what shows up on screen, normally you would have to scroll down to see what's down there. But if you move down there with your controller, it doesn't scroll. It just moves your cursor below the cutoff. And I literally had to move my mouse over and scroll it with the mouse. So, you know, just it says full controller support. You know, it mostly works, but there's some stuff that does not work on controller. But yeah, this is what I mean when I don't know if it's meant to be a serious game or not, or if it's, as some reviews say, meant to be a troll meme game. Why are you finding copies of Two Girls, One Mug on VHS in this game? It's so weird. Later on, you also find your first gun, and there are guns in this, which is kind of cool. Like, obviously, guns can work in Souls-likes. I'm currently playing Remnant 2 with my friends Chris and Taylor. Remnant 2 is awesome, and that is mostly gun-focused Souls-like with a little bit of melee. So they can totally work in a Souls-like. They're implemented so poorly in this game. They're implemented so badly that I literally have to switch to mouse and keyboard if I ever want to use a gun, because the sensitivity when you're aiming with a controller is just god-awful. There's no aim assist or anything, which you really need if you're doing any shooting with a controller. And then it very quickly becomes apparent that the inventory system is kind of terrible. You're able to have a one-handed sword, a two-handed sword, and a gun equipped at any time. You have very little ammo, unfortunately, so you don't use a gun very much, which is maybe fortunate because, yeah, it does not feel good to use. And to switch between the weapons you have equipped or your magic powers, you basically hold left trigger and it brings up a weapon wheel. And you basically move the right stick to select what you want to have equipped and then let go of left trigger and it'll theoretically equip that item. I found the weapon wheel so unresponsive. So, you know, if I would run out of ammo, I would sometimes just get destroyed because I was not able to equip my my sword again, and I was just sitting there with no ammo, just getting killed. Speaking of getting killed, one of the first tutorial pop-ups that came up was for the inventory. And I was like, okay, yeah, inventory, blah, blah, blah. And then at the bottom it says, keep in mind that you will lose the majority of your items if you die, so tread carefully. And I was like, what? You don't just lose your souls. There aren't any souls in this game. You don't just lose experience or something. You lose the majority of your items if you die. It also says you'll be able to find the rest of your belongings near to the place of your recent death if you hurry over there. So very high risk, high reward system apparently. It's not in the game right now. I don't even know why that's in the tutorial because, yeah, I died a ton of times at one of the last combat sections of the tutorial because it was terrible. And yeah, I didn't lose any of my vast array of stupid meme items in my inventory. They were all safe and sound. The combat is mostly serviceable as long as it's one-on-one. It's like a little bit floaty, I guess. Like your character, there is lock-on, like any good Souls-like has, but your character doesn't really adhere to the lock-on too much, and he'll regularly just kind of be looking off to like the left of the enemy while the enemy's like wailing away on you. He's just kind of like looking past them or looking like 90 degrees to their side. Kind of weird. Human enemies are able to block and parry like nobody's business. They are easily the hardest enemy in the game. Even when they've got a gun, I'm like, okay, great, as long as I get in close, I'll be able to just kill them quickly. Because they can do a lot of damage and like stun you if they're shooting you with a shotgun from range or anything. No, as soon as you get up close to them, they just hit you with like the barrel of their gun, they headbutt you, you can just get stun locked by even ranged enemies up close, it's ridiculous. As soon as there's more than one enemy at a time, you can literally just get juggled between enemies, just bounce back and forth between their attacks. I would be like mashing the roll button to get away, wouldn't matter, would just get surrounded and easily killed. So yeah, the last combat encounter of the tutorial was awful. I had to do it a lot of times, or I had to try it a lot of times before I was finally able to get past it. And once I got past it, it took me up to the Citadel, which looked quite cool, and then it made me do a combat tutorial, and I'd literally learned everything. I'd even done the press block 3 times to learn it kind of thing in the opening, and then it made me do all that again as soon as I got to the Citadel. Very strange, I don't know why that's there. It said it was optional, but I was like, oh, you know, there's another tutorial, I guess I should do this, because it'll probably teach me something new. It did not. And then once you're in the Citadel and you're done your second tutorial, you start going around and having to talk to people, and there's so much dialogue in this game, and it drags on for ages and ages. I'm sure some of like the conversations took like multiple minutes to get through. Again, all voice acted, which is theoretically nice, but it's far too wordy. I think a lot of the dialogue needs cutting out because it doesn't add anything, really. It's all just kind of cringy. There's like some attempts at humor. Doesn't work at all, and it's all read out in weird voice acting. Devs posted an early access roadmap shortly after the game's release, and it's divided up into 3 sections, which is quite worrying. March 2025 will add a new level, a new location, new enemy, and new weapons. April 2025, a month later, will add exact same thing, a new level, new locations, new weapons, new enemies. And then the entry right after March and April 2025 is full release. So their roadmap is we'll do stuff and release stuff for the first 2 months, and then we'll just wait for the full release, possibly. That's what it sounds like. Again, on the roadmap, there's nothing about the voice acting, so who knows if that's actually going to be added. Like I said, I'm very, very confused by this game. I don't know if it's going for a serious game, a weird meme, self-aware game. I genuinely have no idea. There's such a disparity between the world and story, and all the weird, terrible jokes and weird items that you find. You can find like furry porn and anime and stuff. It's just bizarre. It doesn't feel good to play. The combat's not good. The controls don't feel super responsive. The gunplay is just awful on a controller. It should not have to switch between keyboard and mouse and controller. Excuse me? Between keyboard and mouse and controller on the fly in a game. That just never feels good. Do something with the controller aiming. Some kind of aim assist definitely needs to be in there. It runs really well, I'll give it that. I had everything on epic except for post-processing, which I turned all the way down to low, of course. And I don't think I ever went below like 80 FPS. It's, I think, optimized for lower end computers, because I did notice that texture and detail and even like enemy pop-in was very, very close to the camera. If you're just walking through a town, you can see like rocks on the floor pop in not far ahead of you, and enemies and NPCs will pop in quite close to you. That is, honestly, I would always take that over a very laggy, low frame rate game. You know, that there would hopefully be a way to change the settings to bump that up a little bit at the cost of some performance, but you know, I'll always take a smoother game experience, personally. As of right now, there's no way I would recommend this in early access. I think if you're interested in it, keep an eye on it. I would love to see what this looks like out of early access. If it makes it out of early access, apparently you have to wait less than a year for it to happen. So yeah, I'm interested to keep an eye on it, but yeah, I do not want to play any more of this. There you go, that was a look at Sancticide. Thank you guys very much for watching. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!